Hey everyone, I'm Amiena and welcome back to my channel Amiena Inspired. So this week I was scolded at my daughter's school and I had an opportunity to really feed my ego and get on the defensive and show this woman who's boss, but I went the EQ way. So I was a bit snippy, but I have to say that out of that interaction I grew, and this is what I want to share with you today. So a lot of times we want to know how do we protect ourselves or how do we respond to criticism. But I want us to take a step back. I want us to look at our interactions with people and genuinely ask ourselves, is this criticism or just really crudely formed and unsolicited advice? Because there is a difference. And I want to tell you about this situation that I had this week at my daughter's school and how I didn't give in to the ego and how hopefully we can all be a little bit more emotionally intelligent and make better choices. Okay, so firstly, we all know that the ego is fueled by our misery and our self-righteousness, okay, and our feelings of being of self-importance. Okay, so the ego is not a good thing. The ego is the reason why people actually get into trouble, because they want to show the world who's boss and become very, very destructive. So I don't like the ego, but everyone has an ego, and mine was tested this week when I went to go fetch my daughter at her school. So there's a huge parking lot and there's a lot of cars, but the time that I came was very late in the afternoon, only 2 cars, no children in sight. And I have to tell you this because it's the truth. I love driving, and I love driving fast. And when I drove into my daughter's school's parking lot, I drove in like I always do, like Fast and the Furious vibe. And I pulled in, I was feeling good, music was loud, yay. I got out of my car, and then this woman in a really big van, called me over and she said, and I have to tell you the best way that I remember it so that you get to understand how my ego was thoroughly provoked. So she says to me, excuse me. And I walked over and she's like, do you know that the way you pulled into that parking spot right now was so irresponsible? You could have hurt or killed a child. Do you know that this is a school and that I'm a parent here? And that what you're doing is not acceptable in this space. Okay. She looks at me, and my ego was jumping, pop, 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 because I love driving and I love driving fast. And I was going to tell her, can you look around you? There's no children here. I'm parked far from the entrance, so even if a child does come out of the school, I can see them a mile away. There's no way that they could be that fast. And I'm a very good driver, and I'm also a parent at the school, and blah, 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 blah. I could have done all of those things. That was the ego. But because I practice EQ, and I always want to grow, I had to also position myself so I can get a little bit of space. So I stood there and I said to her, thank you for sharing. Which basically means, I hear your point, but it doesn't take accountability, okay? So it might seem a bit like I'm being a bit snippy, but I don't believe in me taking accountability when I'm not wrong. When I'm wrong, 100%, and when I'm proven to be wrong, 100%. But at that moment, I really felt ambivalent about it because I thought, well, there's nobody here. Maybe she had a long day, but I'm just also a mom, and I'm very responsible with my fast driving. So I said that to her. I said to her, thank you for sharing, and she drove off. What got me was when I went to go, 2 minutes later, I went to collect my daughter, and she had no shoes on her feet. And so, obviously, and it's a gravel ground, right, in the parking lot. So it's hot. I pick her up, and I'm carrying her all the way to the car, far away from the entrance. Just because I don't want the thought of her little toes getting cut or getting scorched by the sun and the heat on the gravel floor. And that realization stopped me, because I thought to myself, if I'm so worried about her little toes getting scorched, which would be a temporary thing, a temporary pain. This woman that was complaining about my driving, and yes, I took whichever precautionary, measures that I did, still doesn't um, exclude or exonerate me from guilt if a child should jump over the wall, for example, or if there was a child in the car that I didn't see that jumped out of a window, some freaky thing, and then I maim or kill a child. Can I possibly live with that if I'm a parent that will carry a daughter like 5, 6, 10 meters just so that her little toes don't get hurt? And so in that instant I thought to myself, no, Amiena, you gotta make a change. But the point of this whole story is that I wouldn't be able to have gotten to that point of thinking through my own driving and how I need to change it, even though I'll miss that part of it. If I was giving into my ego, because then I would have been like, yeah, I told her and she would, I would not be thinking about what she said, and it wouldn't have sunk in. And that's the critical point here. This is the golden bit of advice that I want to give you right now. Just because your ego is dying for you to be offended doesn't mean there isn't something that you can learn out of and grow from. So, before I give you strategies, which I will later on, like in another video, like what to do in the face of criticism, it's very important that you assess whether or not something is a critique or if it's just thinly veiled, cruel advice. Okay? And there's a very easy way for you to do it. Just ask yourself deeply and frankly in your mind, ask yourself, is what this person is saying true? If it's true, you can do various things. You can apologize, you can have changed behavior, you can like those two things, I guess. So that's what I want you to think about for today or this week. When we are getting negative vibes or negative words from people, it sucks and it's so easy to get into our ego. But if we want to have a high EQ, we must be willing to be able to step back, reflect, and make changes where necessary. And if you need time to do that, and the next time, and someone might be critiquing you for real and not just giving you advice, take that moment and just say these magical words. Thank you for sharing. It's something to think about, because you might still not be wrong in this equation, or you might be wrong. So just make it very neutral and just say, thank you for sharing. It's something to think about. And then go home and actually think about it. And if you realize that you're wrong, you're wrong. Make changes. And if you realize that you were absolutely 100% right, then you didn't apologize for something that wasn't your fault. So we are all on a journey. I know that it's never going to be perfect and easy, but I want you to know there are ways that we can step back, say no to our ego, and make changes that we can be proud of. Okay, that's me. I would love to hear about what's been happening with you and how you deal with critique. And catch me on Instagram at Amiena Inspired. I love it there. There's no critique there, only inspiration. Okay, much love.